Welcome back to the South Park City Museum series on the Victorian Barroom. I am here with Sam Ranke from the Snitching Lady Distillery in Fairplay, Colorado. First heard about these guys because we did a really neat fundraising event at Rachel's Place, which you've been seeing on the show, where people were actually able to come in and have Victorian drinks in the actual Victorian saloon. And the Snitching Lady sponsored our event with several bottles of some really great alcohol. So the first thing Amy and me did when we hit town was to stop in and sample. And I was just so blown away by the work you guys are doing and the story that just wanted to stop in and talk with you about what you got going on.
Thank you. Well, we're happy to have you here. The Snitching Lady Distillery is a young business in Fairplay that comes from a long history of moonshining. The owner, Thomas, grew up in a family of Southern moonshiners.
Awesome.
He learned that the act of whiskey and brandy making at a very early age. He tells the story where before he even knew what he was doing, he was helping his father and his grandfather making moonshine in the backyard. So he carried that tradition up to here in the Colorado mountains. He's been making all types of grain whiskey and fruit brandies from Colorado fruit orchards and all the Colorado plains where the grains grow is where he gets all of his grains. And so he kind of does things the old-fashioned way. He malts his own grains. We built the stills ourselves.
Wow.
So we have a lot of control over everything, with the exception of the barrels. We're not coopering our own barrels, although that would be pretty fun to do. But the Snitching Lady name comes from just that history of making moonshine and getting snitched on over the years.
Right.
And that's what brought us here today.
Well, I think we found that some of the best craft distillers started that way. When you're really doing it for real, you're not just going through an industrial process. Nothing against anybody else, but some of the best artisanship I think I've seen started off with moonshining.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I noticed about you guys' stuff, and I didn't notice it right away, but I really had respect for it when I did, is that I think my favorites were the blue corn, the rye, and the brandy. And they haven't been aged very long, have they?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Actually, the blue corn and the rye right now are just at 12 months. So in the whiskey world, it's quite young.
Yeah.
But what we notice is where we're at here, our distillery is at 10,000 feet here in Fairplay, Colorado, which of course in and of itself is a high elevation, but the higher you go, we find there's some advantages with our barrel aging process. So we mash, distill, we malt, we mash, we distill, and we fill our barrels here. But then we take those barrels up another 2,000 feet in elevation. So near 12,000 feet is where our aging site is. And what's happening at that elevation is several things. The temperature change is really dramatic within a day period up there. So in the summer especially, at that elevation, when the sun comes out, the sun's rays are very intense. And so they really bake those barrels. I should mention, for most of their lives, these barrels have been sitting outside uncovered.
Gotcha.
So they expand and then they contract. As soon as the sun goes down at night, the temperature plummets 50 to 60 degrees. And in the winter especially, very, very cold, but the sun will bake it. So the wood of those barrels is working a lot hotter. And what that's doing is it's putting more of its wood, oak, charred flavor into the spirit within at a quicker rate than you would get at a lower elevation. So though we have a 1 year, a young whiskey, it might taste like it's been aging for several years longer than that. And as we get older as a business, we're very excited to continue to release older spirits, the more that we age as a business. Our ambitious vision is to be around for 100 more years.
Yeah.
And every year we get to release a barrel that's been aging in a longer year than the previous batch of that same spirit. So
absolutely. Yeah, not everybody is successful at this. That's one thing I noticed right away, and I really loved it, especially the blue corn. Is there a story about the blue corn in particular?
Sure. So Thomas was always making corn whiskey, but I think what he could get his hands on was yellow corn or feed corn, which is sort of an American moonshining tradition.
Right.
However, when he moved out to Colorado, he got wind of this Native American group near the Four Corners region of Colorado that's been growing this special type of blue corn. And it's been growing on their land for centuries. And he thought, well, what could I do with that instead of this yellow corn? And so he bought one bag from this group, and he made a little experimental batch, and it turned out to be one of the most buttery whiskeys he had ever tasted. And so he decided to go forward that. We now have a partnership with the Ute Mountain Ute Indian tribe in Tuwak, Colorado. They grow that corn and they give it to us and a few other businesses in the state as well. And so we're very lucky to be able to work with them, native grains. And the Buttons Blue Corn is what we call it. That has sort of allowed people to really come to our distillery in search of a unique type of whiskey that they might not have ever had.
Right.
We're very proud of our blue corn. Not only does it taste delicious for all of us, but we have entered it into several competitions, and it has won gold medal in almost every single one.
Wow.
Including it was Best Corn Whiskey in the 2020 International SIP Awards outside of New York City. So
well deserved.
Thank you. So we're very happy for it.
Well, now I think anybody who's watched this show at all knows I'm an apple brandy evangelist. That really is what kicked all this off. So I was really impressed with you guys' brandy. Do you have anything to kind of tell us about that?
So the brandy was the original spirit that we made as a business. When we got our licenses to distill legally, the very first mash that Thomas and his business partner made was a grape brandy. And they call that Appalachian Temptation Grape Brandy. So brandy has always been very special to us. Although we sell more of our whiskey, and that's what most people come to us for, the brandy is very special. There's a lot of brandies on the market that are flavor additives. It might be sweetened a little bit. So some folks get quite a shock when they try our brandy for the first time because it's not sweetened. It's quite bold and it's quite strong. But we're lucky to live a couple of 100 miles away from a very fruitful region of the country. So the western slope of Colorado is known for its peaches, its grapes and vineyards, its apples and its cherries. And lucky for us, we get to work with local orchard owners and farmers and use those fruits for our brandies. And we also have a local honey maker as well that we add to our brandies before we add the yeast, just to give it some extra sugar to feed off of. So we're just working with a lot of Colorado stuff here. The apple brandy in particular is a newer release for us. It's a young one. We wanted it to be more about the apples and less about the oakiness, but it was aged for just shy of a year. And as you know, you've tried it, it's got a really lovely apple aroma and a crisp apple finish. Goes wonderful on its own, especially if it's warmed up a tad. Lovely in a drink as well. And then, but probably our best-selling spirit of all time would be our peach brandy, which is very coveted, and we only release it every few years.
Gotcha. And they're doing it for real. This is not peach-flavored brandy. This is the actual peach brandy that you would have gotten in the 19th century. When I was in here the other day, they were telling me y'all are mashing it with the solids in.
Just about a week ago, here we are in late July. It's perfect time for peaches. We received several tons of peaches from these orchards. And a group of us all got together and we squeezed them with our bare hands, juice flowing everywhere, just to remove the pit. That way we have a juicy pulp mash to work with.
Right.
So it's very hands-on, very visceral, very delicious and sticky as well.
Excellent. So just blown away by what these guys are doing here. This was an unexpected treat. Like I say, they really helped us out by sponsoring the event the other night, which helped out with the restoration of the painting at Rach's place. And once I came here and tasted their stuff and heard the story, I feel like this is a lot closer to a 19th century distilling experience than you would get at most modern distilleries that you might go to.
Sure.
So anything else you want to add on that?
I just would love to invite everybody to come check us out in Fairplay. It's a quaint little town. We love partnering with the South Park City Museum, renowned for its relics and its turned back into history. And as you mentioned, we do love our kind of old-fashioned look here.
Yeah.
And so if you ever get the chance, come on in and enjoy a drink or two with us and ask us any questions, and we'd love to give you a tour as well.
Awesome. This is the real deal, guys. So if you have any chance to try it out, please do. It's fantastic. Again, thanks for joining us on the South Park City Museum series on the Victorian Barroom. You can check the links below for some information on how you can support South Park City Museum and the Victorian Barroom. And as always, don't forget that like and subscribe. That really does help us out. And click the bell icon to keep up to date with what we're doing. doing. So once again, this is the Snitching Lady Distillery, and thanks for being here with us, and here's to you.
Cheers.
Sam showed me around the distillery afterwards, which was great. Here they are mashing peach brandy. They're doing it the right way, like we talked about. It's not just peach flavored something else. And if you saw the video that Alan Bishop and me and some others were in with Townsend's a few years back at Locust Grove about apple brandy, you'll notice some similarities to that process, that mashing process. This is the 500-gallon copper still that they used. They were fermenting the peach brandy at that time. There's 300 gallons of mash that goes into it. And as we travel around here, we'll see the brandy being collected. The beautiful white dog. I really wish I'd been there to partake of this when it was done. And after this, we traveled around to these two smaller stills. This was some bourbon on its second distillation. This was primarily using the same blue corn that they use in their blue corn whiskey. This also included rye and oats in the mash. Didn't believe for a long time that good bourbon could come from outside of Kentucky, but this was some unique stuff, and it was really a treat to get to visit with these guys and talk about it. Here's the new mate being collected, that white bourbon. So of course, eventually the clear spirit goes into barrels and ages, and that's where that wonderful brown or reddish color comes from. Over here, Sam showed me their grain, and again, their grain is all coming from either Native American tribes nearby or other local farmers. This is unmalted rye, fresh, ready to go, and this is the malted rye itself, and they malt it all right here, right there at Snitching Lady. These guys are the real deal, and that's the malting floor itself. And there you can see that malted rye, again, that they did right there themselves. They are doing every part of the process there. These are real old-fashioned artisans. This is about as small as you can get legally these days, and one of the closest to a 19th century distillery I think I've ever been in. We travel over here, these barrels have been put up for long-term aging, so they're gonna leave those in there for years and years. This is a small operation. They do what they're comfortable with, and when it's gone, and that makes it extra special. Next, we went to the bottling room and called up with Ray Baez, and he showed us their bottling process. This was a lot of fun to see. You know, small scale, all hand done, just like everything else at the distillery. That was that blue corn whiskey that we loved so much that they're working on here. So you see it going into the bottle, then we come around. He's gonna do that cork by hand, one by one. And he checks each one of these for clarity. As he was telling me, no matter how many times they filter it, little bits of barrel can get through, and some people like the rustic nature of it, but you know, some people have more posh tastes. So they keep it as clear as possible for the satisfaction of all the different customers. And now, they're gonna put the twine on it, and this is part of their really neat kind of opening process. You don't just crack it open like you would any other bottle. So he's gonna be wrapping that twine around the cork and then flip it up, and he's got a crock pot full of blue wax there, and you see him swirling that wax off. He was telling me that they are careful not to let it drip because that's Maker's Mark's thing. They're doing their own thing. Stamp the emblem on that wax. And then it goes into some cold water to solidify. And here Ray shows us the beautiful final product. This was just a real treat to see this distillery and to visit with these guys. I wish I could be there more often. I wish they were closer, but we brought some stuff back for us and for some gifts for some people too, and really wish Snitching Lady luck out there. I hope we meet again, and thanks for coming with us. Check out what they've got going on there, and also don't forget to support South Park City Museum, who was our gracious host for this whole thing. So thanks again, and we will see you next time.